The servant mate. The party was getting longer than usual. All the servants were getting tired as the people attending gave them their orders to get fresh meat, to fill up their drinks, and, worst of all, to clean up after their messy faces. Many of the servants say they are treated poorly or forced to look after others because of the jobs they are given for little pay. One was lucky even to get a coin a week. Then there are the few who are thankful for the gift of money, and they realize that the new king and queen are trying to give them more. They know that being a servant meant food and a place to sleep, with a bit of money. A few of these people, the Wraith family, are the lowest-ranking servants in the house, and they are thankful for every septim they get. The only daughter of this family, a young girl called Anna, watched as the princes kissed the hands of every lady who walked past them. Well, all except the oldest and middle princes. The oldest had found his mate young and had never gotten into those ways. When his mate died, he made sure not to go with anyone else unless he thought she would approve. He's gone out with only one girl since then. The middle prince was just brilliant. The smaller middle prince was the worst. He did things that no one wanted to hear about, let alone see. The servant girl watched as he took the hand of a remarkable woman in a rosy dress. She followed him, and the girl lost sight of him. Suddenly, the crowd cleared to see the middle prince scowling at his younger brother. The servants served the princes, since there were 5. The oldest is the oldest of them all. He was the kindest and wisest of his brothers. He is also known as Prince Nestor. Then came the bigger middle, who was a year and a half younger than his brother. He is 20. He tends to do things in hopes of finding his mate, so if that means kissing everyone's hand, he would do it. He is Prince Gilbert. The middle prince was the best of the middles. He was kind, thoughtful, selfless, and he only wanted what was best. He is Prince Anthony, 16 years old. The smaller middle prince was the worst. He would flirt with girls, ask them out, and when they were done doing whatever, the prince making sure that the girl paid, he would leave her with no one to drive her home. Prince Hector. Then the smallest. He was bound to follow in the smaller middle's footsteps, the way he hung around his brother. He is also known as Prince Sebastian. The servant girl chuckled to herself at Prince Hector's face as the middle prince scolded him. As Anna got back to serving the people, Prince Hector walked up to her. She was about 13 and he was 14. "May I have a drink from a lovely lady?" She was given a drink and he winked at the girl. Prince Anthony walked up to him with an expression of frustration. "Hector, I thought I told you to stop." The smaller middle prince glared at his brother, but he left Anna. Prince Gilbert came up to her, and the brothers spoke at the same time. "Are you okay?" She nodded and started walking away as Prince Hector stuck his boot out and made her trip. Just then, a group of girls came over and accidentally bumped into them as the princes grabbed the girls' wrists. Both princes' eyes flew wide with surprise at Anna's as the 3 of them felt shocks. The Prince Gilbert turned to woman, "Mate." She smiled and her friends ran off, with Anna running with them. The girl ran to the kitchen and hid in there, as the middle prince ran after the group, telling them to stop running, thinking that his mate was in the group. Little did he know that he had left her behind. Chapter 1. I yawned and stretched as I tried to shake off the last bits of the dream. I had been having it since I turned 17. It wasn't bad, but it was annoying. I would wake up and not remember a thing, only really just forgetting why I ran from my mate all those years ago. 4 years, and my wolf was getting restless. Well, 4 years and a month. I found him on my birthday. I ran from him on my birthday. Servant life is difficult, but I couldn't show myself. If I brought the family any lower than it was, then I would have a miserable life. I knew that Prince Anthony was the second best prince, but something held me back. The thought of rejection. My mother coming into my room shook me from my thoughts. "Sebastian's room, 15 minutes," she ordered. I grunted and got up. I put on working clothes, which consisted of a creamish gray servant dress and some dark shoes, and went down for breakfast. It was Friday, so we could go out for breakfast instead of taking the castle-provided meals. My best friend and basically sister ran out to meet me. "Anna, McD's or Chick-fil-A?" Fern was jumping with excitement. I gave her an exasperated look. "What do you think? Honestly, you've known me almost my entire life, and you still ask that question." My parents had found Fern in a little cave, only 1 year old. All she remembered was her mother calling her Fern, her mother getting beaten, her mother running, her getting beaten, and her father telling her that she was worthless before whipping her and running. She was found the next day. Fern called out in a teasing manner, "McD's it is!" I raced toward her, and she ducked under cover. I swerved at the last moment to avoid hitting the wall. As Fern started laughing, I jumped at her and cornered her. "If you really need an answer to that question, we are going to Chick-fil-A." I would have thought that she had learned not to mess with me when it comes to food. I mean, everyone is dead if I don't get my daily dosage of sugar. If I don't go out on a Friday, I tend to go crazy. The neighbors always had a little something they would leave out if my parents couldn't afford to go out. They placed it 20 feet from the porch steps and came out the next day to retrieve the bowl. Yeah, I'm a fierce wolf when it comes to food. And I have a temper to be feared. I don't understand, but I guess since I'm really short-tempered, it makes a bit of sense. "Anna, if you don't get some food in you within 5 minutes, I'm going on a rampage." I laughed at my wolf. Holly, she always told me what to do and a certain amount of time to do it. Holly growled, "If you think that's funny, then I will go on this rampage." "Oh no, I just was remembering something from yesterday." She snorted. "Sure. Now, I need Chick-fil-A." "All right, you furball." Around 2 minutes later, I was happily stuffing myself with food with Fern cracking up next to me. "What?" She laughed harder. "Getting enough to eat there?" I snorted. "No." She laughed even harder as I turned to Nicholas, my older brother. "Hey, you gonna eat that?" I questioned, pointing with my fork to his half-eaten fries and his cookie. He laughed and pushed his plate over to me, and I immediately ate his fries. Then I went for the cookie, gobbling it up in 2 bites. The whole family was laughing by now, Fern the hardest. I poked her. "What's so funny?" Holly laughed at this. "Anna, picture Fern stuffing food in her face." I giggled at the thought. "Now change Fern to you." I started cracking up at this, while my other brother, Pyle, looked at me in a strange manner. "Holly," is all I said before I got another plate in front of me. My eyes sparkled at the prospect of more food, and everyone started laughing until the doors to the Chick-fil-A opened and the royal family stepped in. "Grab what you want and let's go," my mother ordered. Holly was howling at me to go to my mate, but I grabbed the fries and walked out, shutting out her whimpers. The truth was, I was starting to feel the loss of my mate. I did it for my family and Fern, I reminded myself. We arrived at the castle within a minute, and we went to the rooms we had to clean out. "Have fun in Hector's room, Fern." She glared at me as she went into the dreaded room. I walked into Sebastian's room, only to find it completely clean. There wasn't even a speck of dust. As I looked around for something to clean, I found a letter with the words, "The servant who cleans my room." I opened it and smiled at the inside. "Dear servant, I don't know your name. You have always left my room in perfect condition. Today, I decided to return the favor. The other rooms are a mess, but I personally cleaned mine in my free time. You may help the other servants or take the day off. Take this letter. Your prince, Sebastian. P.S. If you want to thank me, don't. I have so much more to thank you for." I was a bit confused at that, but then I remembered that when I found things that shouldn't be in here, I never turned them in. I would write a letter saying what I did to hide them. It was never my business to search the rooms, only to clean them. As I walked out of Sebastian's room, Fern walked out of Hector's room, looking relieved. Helga said that she would take the bathroom if I did the ballroom. How is Seb's? Seb is our nickname for Sebastian. We only say it among servants, though. Read this. I handed her the letter, and she looked downright jealous. So lucky. Hey, can you help me? I nodded, and as we got to the ballroom, the royal family came in. We showed them our cleaning buckets, I avoided Prince Anthony's eyes, and the Queen reminded us yet again how to treat the big rug. We nodded and shared a quick look, both of us knowing a much easier way to do that without them telling a difference. Chapter 2. As Fern and I put the paintings up, the carpet was delivered. We said our thanks to the man, and I rolled it out. You're not seriously going to do it that way, are you? I glanced at Fern, my eyes telling her to be quiet. This is how the Queen wants it. It's not as hard as it sounds. Do you want to do it for the first time? I questioned, knowing the smaller middle prince was watching. She widened her eyes, immediately understanding. Oh, no thank you. I'll finish up with the paintings, she said in a convincing manner. I heard Hector walk away. Fern, be more careful. Sorry, she muttered. But are you actually going to do it that way? I shook my head when I saw that there were no royals around. I lifted my hands and circled them around. Sparkles started showing, and soon a magic ball was formed. I murmured a few things, and the magic went to the rug. It unrolled itself and put itself down perfectly. I made the magic put pressure on it, and the rug was perfect. Just then, Fern put the last painting up. Wow, that looks nice. You haven't lost your magic touch then. I laughed. No. I was a different type of werewolf. I was a werewolf mage, a rare wolf with instinctive magic abilities. They tended to be feared, for if angry, they could cast spells to kill a king. I always disguised myself as a hunter, and I mastered the art of archery. Going out with Fern, we're done. I mind-linked Father. He sent an okay back, and I dragged Fern outside. Hunt for the kitchen tonight? I asked. Whenever I hunted, I brought some home, and the rest I donated to the kitchen. The king and queen had been searching for the donor who had always provided fresh meat when the actual hunters couldn't find it, to thank them and bring them up to a higher status. I never showed myself for fear that the princes would have to shake my hand, and that couldn't happen. She nodded, but I only found a rabbit. If we can take a deer down, there'll be a feast. I nodded and went farther into the forest, my bow out with an arrow ready. Soon I saw a young doe walking around with its mother. I mind-linked Fern, who was in her wolf form. When I shoot the mother, if I don't kill it, go for it. If I do, go for the baby. She nodded her black wolf's head and turned her attention back to the deer. I knocked an arrow in, and I shot the mother right in the neck, in the death spot. It fell over, and as the smaller one started to run, Fern got it and took it down. I took my arrow out of the deer and mounted it on Fern's back. Then I grabbed the other doe and walked to the family house for dinner. After I dropped it off, I got a trash bag and pretended to drag trash to the dumpster. I dragged the deer to the kitchen. I let it go, and I ran out, meeting up with my younger brother, Peter. Did you drop a baby deer at our house? I nodded, and he asked, what about its mama? Will she be sad? I nearly said, "Aw," out loud, but I had to explain, you see, Peter, you don't fully understand the concept of hunting yet. I might just kill a baby, but usually the baby's with the mother. I always kill the mother because it's bigger and because that's how we survive. If I didn't kill the baby, it would eventually die on its own. So you didn't just kill the baby, he checked. Right. He sighed. Good. Did you donate the mother? I nodded, and he walked away. Fern met me on the way to the house. I think Peter was almost crying when he thought about the mother being sad. I know, he has to understand that we eat meat to survive. The friends walked in silence, not talking, until a high-ranking officer came in front of them. I immediately recognized him as Officer Robert. Excuse me, but do you know who has been donating to the kitchen? Today's deer was huge, and we want to thank them for feeding us. We will up your status and the donors as well. We both shook our heads. Sorry, we have no idea. He walked out of the servant quarters looking a bit frustrated. "I think I'm driving the king and queen crazy," I said, glancing at Fern. "I would be crazy too. They can't thank someone who has been keeping them alive." I snorted as I opened the door to the house. I opened the fridge to see the dough stored in it. I snorted again. "I think the boys found this. One of the legs is gone." Fern laughed. "Well, you didn't eat much for breakfast," she pointed out. I growled. I was hungry. She rolled her eyes at me and set to work on the haunch I pulled out for her. I heated mine up, and when I was done, I shifted into a wolf and gnawed on the ribs I got for myself. Chapter 3. I ran faster as I heard someone call out my name, but when I turned to look for the person, they weren't there. "Anna, please, slow down." I just ran even faster until it was like I was flying. "Anna." The voice came again. I screamed and took a sharp turn. I slipped on the leaves and landed on my side. I looked up to see the silhouette of a person bending over me, saying muttered words that were too quiet to hear. I writhed under its gaze, and finally I let out a scream. The person backed up, and I woke up whispering Anthony, just loud enough for me to hear it. Fern looked at me with a concerned face. "You okay? Same dream?" I nodded, and she asked, "Remember anything this time?" "There was someone chasing me, and I slipped before something happened. Everything is just hazy after that." "Great, more nights with my friend screaming." I snorted and lightly slapped her arm as I finished breakfast. I then put my working clothes on and walked to Seb's room. I was expecting it to be messy like usual, but it was spotless again. I looked around again and found another letter. "Dear servant, when you walk out of this room after reading this, you will be met by Officer Dillon, the youngest officer. He will fill you in on something that the king and queen only want you to do. They said that they think you would be best for the job. This room will be clean for a few days. Your prince, Sebastian." I nearly squealed with excitement. No cleaning for a few days. I was jumping by now. I walked out and immediately met Officer Dillon waiting for me. He was really young for an officer, about the same age as Fern and me. "Anna Garaith?" I nodded, and he told me what to do. "We are getting tired of not knowing who donates to the kitchen, especially during winter. We would like you to be a permanent guard there, but don't let yourself be seen." "If I may suggest something," I started. "If I don't clean something every day, the donor will see that and probably not donate. If I clean the ballroom every day, I can see every person who goes into the kitchen." Officer Dillon looked strangely at me. "Where did you become so clever?" I shrugged, and he dismissed me for my day off. I giggled to myself. Of course they put the donor on guard duty to find them. I walked out of the castle and into the garden nearby. I sat on a bench and watched the squirrels play. I laughed as one came up to me, and I stuck my hand out to it. I had tamed a few squirrels because I had always felt a connection to them. Don't ask why, I just love squirrels. They are playful anytime. It's adorable. They are the only rodents I don't hunt. I was jolted out of my thoughts when I heard the sound of someone walking towards me. The squirrel in my hand took off, and I brought my hand back to see Prince Anthony walking in the garden. I held my breath, hoping that he wouldn't see me, but to no avail. He walked over to the other side of the bench and sat down. "You clean out Seb's room, right?" I nodded, and he just grunted something. We sat there in silence for a minute before I burst out laughing. The squirrels were coming back, but they were taking each step very slowly and cautiously. My laughing made them feel safer, so they started bounding up to me. The prince was looking at them strangely and slightly afraid. "Why is a mass of squirrels coming towards us?" I laughed again. "They're harmless, see?" I held out my hand and 3 squirrels got on. I cupped my hands together to support them. It was funny. I put them down and started to get up. The prince almost grabbed my hand, but I shook my head no. "I'm a servant," is all I said before I got up to go get my bow to hunt. Chapter 4. I yawned as I fixed the floor of the ballroom for the 5th time. I couldn't leave the room unless someone else could cover me. This had happened for 3 days, and I was getting tired of it. I hadn't donated at all, and I told Fern not to either. I scrubbed the spot until it sparkled, and when I finished, a palace guard came up to me. "Anyone donated?" I shook my head no, and he growled. He motioned for me to go, and I ran out to the forest, linking Fern to meet me there. "Can't come, Anna. I can't leave the castle unless someone watches me." I was confused. "Fine, but meet me by the doors to the garden." I ran back to the palace and got to the spot to see Fern waiting there. "Why can't you leave?" Fern had a look of happiness on her face. "Protective mates will force you to do anything." My mouth dropped to the floor. "You found your mate. Oh my God, who is it?" "Officer Dillon." My eyes widened, and I was sure a person could walk into my mouth, it had dropped so low. To say I was speechless was an understatement. I was overjoyed, but I was shocked that she had found her mate. "Well, you found yours a long time ago, but you didn't stay with him." Holly barked at me. "Oh, shut up. This is Fern's moment," I growled back. "I'm so happy for you," I said, holding hands with my best friend. She smiled. "Thanks." Just then, she was pulled away from me. I looked up to see Officer Dillon holding a very embarrassed Fern. I laughed at her expression, and she glared at me. I put my hands up in mock surrender. As the officer was about to speak, he suddenly closed his mouth. I looked at Fern questioningly. She shrugged. "Probably the king and queen, or prince. They must know he found his mate by now. Also, what was so funny?" "Your face." "Fern, we have to go. The king and queen will up your families and your status to match mine." She looked away from her mate. "My only family are the Gareths. My parents left me." Officer Dillon looked at me sadly. "Sorry then, the king and queen can only up the status of bloodkin." I nodded and walked away. I walked outside to the place where I kept my bow hidden. I put my hunting gloves on and went out into the forest. I managed to find a huge buck, its antlers the biggest I'd ever seen. I shot it down and I dragged it to the house. I kept looking over my shoulder to ask Fern something, but I always had to remind myself that she wasn't there and probably wouldn't be there at all after today. I frowned. I was happy for Fern, don't get me wrong, but I was already missing her. She wouldn't have as many freedoms as I do because no one really cares if a slave dies. If an officer's mate died, there would be chaos in the castle. I dropped the meat off in the extra freezer we had and set the Xbox up. During the yearly auction, my brothers had put all their tickets into it, but I got it and a few games of my choice. One of them, Skyrim, I love it, was on top of the game stack. I play it almost every day. As I got on, I remembered Fern asking me why I liked that game. I would always shake my head and ask her, "How can you not like it?" I continued on my quest, smashing the head of a forsworn who had gotten in my way. I felt like I was being watched out of game, so I paused and looked around. I glanced around some more before consulting Holly. "Do you feel that?" "Yeah," she answered. "We are being watched. No one bad is watching, but still, I can't quite put my paw on it." I saved the game and closed out before getting up and looking around again. There was knocking at the door, and I went to it and opened it. I saw the middle prince and immediately became wary. "Your Highness," I said, bowing. He looked straight in my eye. "Enough hiding!" I stared at him in shock. Did he find out I was his mate? "I saw you bring that buck in here. Do you donate to the kitchen?" Whew, I thought to myself. "No, Your Highness. You may look through the fridge. I store all of my meat there." The prince walked in and looked through the fridge. He nodded and said, "Good. Now, do you hunt all of this?" I nodded, and he continued, "Then will you teach me how to hunt?" Chapter 5. I looked at the prince in surprise. He must have seen my reaction because he rushed on. My parents have been too busy to set up lessons for me, and I'm the worst hunter in the family. Well, what do you use to hunt besides your wolf? He looked around. Well, I don't see one here, but I use a bow. I can hunt brilliantly as a wolf, but if I can't shift, then I'll be in trouble if I get lost. I nodded. I also use a bow. When do you want to start lessons? Tomorrow after you finish. Could you mind link me without alerting the whole family? I shook my head and he shrugged. It doesn't matter. Will you meet me by the garden? The place the squirrels were? I nodded. I'll be there. But why didn't you ask an officer to help you? He looked down. I didn't want to seem weak. There's a high chance I'll be the next king. If I look weak, that might be passed on to Hector, and that can't happen, he explained. I nodded again, and he left. I went back to the Xbox and I put in a movie. About halfway through it, I heard more knocking at the door. I paused and went to the door. Hello? I looked up and saw that no one was there. I shrugged and went back to the movie. Just then, my parents came in, looking overjoyed. Fern found her mate, we all said excitedly. You knew? Mother asked. I nodded and was consumed in a bear hug. Ugh, can't! Breath! They got off me, and I explained what happened with the prince. So, he still doesn't know? I shook my head no. They looked down. I guess it's for the best. I nodded, and they went over to the fridge to cook dinner. Peter! They yelled to my brother who was upstairs. Do you want buck, 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 doe, 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 or the castle meal? I laughed as she listed off everything we had. The dough was delicious. Let's have that, came the somewhat distracted yell. I went up to see him on the PS3 that he won at the auction. COD, really? He nodded. Yep. Anyway, we have too much meat. You need to start donating again. I shook my head. No, I can't, or else someone will find out. Fine, he growled. I laughed and went downstairs. I'm going out to the garden. Okay, just be back for dinner, my mom called. I ran to the garden and immediately found the squirrels. I hesitated, but I decided to pass them and go to the forest. As I ran to the forest, I spotted Fiaga, a fox. She had told me that foxes tended to have different names from wolves. Fiaga, I called through my animal speak spell. She turned her head to me. Anna, it's been days. I nodded. I know. How's the forest? Well, let's just say the squirrels and birds were at it again. I laughed. The squirrels and the birds were great friends, but they tended to play fight a lot. That usually included birds dropping sticks on the squirrels, who threw acorns at them. We have some weird animals. Chapter 6. Anthony's POV. My wolf is tired of waiting. Our mate ran from us 4 years ago, and she still hasn't shown her face. I questioned the group of girls, but none of the ones who hadn't left quickly were my mate. I was so confused. Why would she run for me? The prince. It doesn't make sense. Gilbert had found his mate too, and they were happy. They already had a pup, Alexander. His mate Lily was living happily with her mate, only caring about her pup. I hadn't seen the group of girls since the party. I was starting to wonder if they were rogues who had passed the guards. There was another face that night. I could never put my finger on it, but it was there. My mind went hazy with the need to have my mate by my side, so I forgot everything but that group. When I find my mate, I'll make sure she feels safe and loved. Good thought, my wolf walker growled. I wasn't paying attention to where I was, but I didn't really care. I was jolted out of my thoughts when I heard something scurrying away. I looked up and realized I was in the garden. I followed the sound of scratching on the dirt, and I suddenly heard a quick drawn breath. I looked around before almost stopping and staring at the beautiful girl in front of me. She wasn't just beautiful, she was gorgeous. I forced myself to treat her like a normal person, and I sat down on the bench. I soon realized that she was a servant. "You clean out Seb's room, right?" I mentally slapped myself. "Really, Anthony? That's what you say to a servant?" I did not just think that. Something's wrong with my head. When I was jolted out of my mental conversation, I heard her laugh. I looked around and saw a massive cluster of squirrels coming towards us. Why is a mass of squirrels coming towards us? Again, really, Anthony? This caused her to laugh more, so I stopped scolding myself. "They are harmless, see?" With that, she put her hand down, and 3 squirrels got on her hand. I was shocked that someone would be able to hold a squirrel. I heard stories of them being difficult to tame. She put the squirrels down and started to get up. I reached out to grab her hand, but at the last moment, she snatched it away. "I am a servant," she whispered before running into the forest. 3 days later, I was taking a walk through the forest when I saw the buck I was stalking fall with an arrow in its chest. I looked around in wolf form for its killer, and I saw the servant. Looking strong, her black hair was waving in the wind, her brown eyes fierce, and she looked good in brown camouflage clothing. She held a bow that was halfway pulled out, and she was staring at the buck. I needed to spend more time with her. I had no idea why, but I needed to. So I thought of the first excuse that came to my mind. I followed her to her home, and a few minutes after she settled down, I knocked and asked her if she was the one donating. When she shook her head, I thought of the next best excuse, that I needed help hunting in human form. That wasn't entirely false, but not wholly true either. After setting up the lesson time, I left, but not before realizing that she was on her Xbox playing Skyrim. Chapter 7. Honest POV. When the guard told me to go, I immediately went to the garden to find the prince. He was already there when I walked up to the bench. "Are you ready?" He looked up with a long bow in his hands. "Yes," he answered. I looked skeptically at his bow, but I didn't comment as I walked out into the forest. "Wait here," I told him before I ran to where my hunter's bow was hidden. I grabbed the arrows and put the weapons over my back. I then walked back to where the prince was waiting. Before I showed myself, I put my brown gloves on, loving how they looked against my arms and the brown outfit I was wearing. I had made the outfit myself. It was specially made so I could shift in it and shift back, still wearing it. I had put a spell on it. I walked into the clearing and Prince Anthony looked at my bow. "Where did you get that? This was the best hunting bow I could find in the weaponry." I laughed. "I made this myself," I explained. He nodded, and we walked further into the forest. I soon scented an elk, and I motioned for Anthony to stop. "I'm going to try and bring it down. You watch what I do and be ready to take it down if I miss the throat." He nodded, and I got into position before following the scent that the elk had left. I found it in a clearing, and I put myself in the perfect position. I locked the arrow in, and I pulled the string back. A whizzing sound was heard before the elk collapsed. The prince gasped at how I hunted. I glanced at him. I can do it a lot faster. I then walked up to the elk and shifted before digging a huge hole and dragging the elk into it. I then kicked dirt and leaves over it and shifted back. Prince Anthony was staring at my outfit. "How?" I realized that he was talking about how my clothes didn't rip apart. "Oh, I made this too. It won't rip when I shift, or do anything for that matter," I explained. He nodded, and we walked further into the forest. I was wondering how he could not figure out that I was his mate. Well, if he saw my looks, then any man in their right mind would turn tail and run. "If I hear you think that one more time, I will personally rip your mind to pieces." "Okay." Okay. Holly? Would you mind not yelling? It can be a bit loud. She grumbled and suddenly barked at me to stay still. I looked up to find a young buck grazing. I looked back at the prince and nodded to him before shifting in case he missed. He set up his bow. I was still somewhat skeptical about how it would work, and I turned my attention to the animal. The arrow whizzed and hit the animal in the shoulder. I growled and raced forward, smashing down on the hindquarters. I snapped its neck in one bite. My wolf's beautiful silvery white pelt was now bloody paws and muzzle. I buried the buck before shifting back, still bloody, and turning to the prince. He was staring at my mouth in shock. I licked my lips and yawned. I want to go for a walk. Keep practicing, and soon you will have the one-shot kill down. When you are finished, collect the others. I shifted again and raced into the forest. Chapter 8. Anona's POV. I shifted back out of sight, my dark hair waving in the wind. I knew that Holly was yelling at me the entire time, so I had tuned her out early. The prince was following me for a bit. I was so freaked out. I was lucky that I could tell when he shifted. If not, he would have found out I was his mate. My smell would have been impossible to resist if I were in wolf form with him and our scents crossed paths. Right before he shifted, I would morph into the opposite animal before finally losing him. I was gasping by the time I had gotten far enough away. I sat down at the base of a tree, leaning my back against the rough bark. Holly finally broke through the wall I had put up. You stupid idiot. We could be happily with our mate, but no, you decided to run again. Soon, you won't be able to hold me back. I shut her out again and continued walking. About an hour later, Holly calmed down, and after a very long explanation, she finally understood why I ran. After some convincing, I managed to get her to agree not to go to him if he called. When I got to the castle, the prince obviously had already gotten there first. Holly, can you point me to the secret entrance? After a bark of yes in response, I slowly let her take over. She ran to the leaf-covered entrance and ran into the servant quarters. She let me back in control, and I thanked her for not going to Anthony. What? That was Fern's mate back there. I thought you just didn't want to deal with him. I sighed. Whoops. Yeah, that's right. Whoops. I say you go back there and deal with him quickly. I sighed again and left the castle before going back in through the main doors. Instantly, I was met by Officer Dylan. He had an expressionless face. Is this about Fern at all? At the sound of his mate's name, Dylan snapped his head to me. He growled slightly. I need you to tell her that she can't go out of my sight unless she is with another officer or royal. She doesn't understand it from me, so you need to tell her. He sounded unhappy that he had to ask a servant for help. Fern, I mind-linked to my friend. If you are going to tell me not to go anywhere unless someone is with me, don't waste your time. I sighed. Why doesn't he want you to go? I heard a sneer in Fern's voice. He's worried that another male will take me from him. I chuckled slightly at this. With your looks, I teased. Oh, wow, Anana, that really hurt. Anyway, back on topic. Yes, with my looks. I can't have any privacy. Lie. He may be your mate, but I've lied to mine many times. Say that you understand, but still go out without someone, I told her. Plus, if something happens, you can mind link me only and tell me where you are. She sighed through the line. Fine. Oh, and by the way, I really miss you. I'm not allowed to visit again, for fear of some male will take me. I sighed and ended the link. Well, what did she say? I looked up and smiled. Ask Fern. He ran to their room and I walked to the servant quarters. As I walked into the family's house, I immediately noticed Kyle on the Xbox, playing Skyrim on my account. Just what do you think you're doing? Kyle looked up and gulped. Yeah, that's right. Be scared. In addition to not getting between me and my food, you never, I repeat, never get between me and my Skyrim. He stuttered. I'm playing Skyrim? I glared at the dead man in front of me. I have eyes, you know. He looked around the room and his eyes landed on the microwave that was about to go off. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beep. Kyle leapt up and got the plate out. I was hoping you would come home right when this got out, but you didn't, so I was really worried you would kill me before I could give this to you. I gasped at what was on the plate. No, I breathed. So much cake! Yellow cake with chocolate icing, chocolate lava cake, wedding cake-sized pound cake, basically anything you can think of. Yes, Kyle told me. All yours too if you let me play for the rest of today. I nodded. Just save often and don't reset it. Kyle made a victory dance and I practically leapt to the cakes. The biggest cake, which was bigger than the pound cake, was gone within 15 seconds. Chapter 9. When my parents finished their jobs and got home, they saw me stuffing my face with cake. Anna, what are you doing? Did you rob the kitchen again? I, halfway through my 7th cake, shook my head. Kyle might have, but I didn't. My parents turned to give Kyle a stern glare. He put his hands up. I admit it, I went through the kitchen. But hey, we are allowed to, and we both got something good out of it. My parents rolled their eyes. Well, since you already have your cake, I will eat your cookie, my father said. I swiveled my head towards him. Don't you dare. He laughed and brought out dinner. I think we are getting tired of deer over and over again, so I got the castle meal. I grabbed the bag and took out one meal. I put it next to my cakes and opened it to see the food. What I saw made me almost leap for joy. Hamburgers, macaroni and cheese, and more cake? And you said something about a cookie too? I hit the jackpot today. Just then, Logan, another brother, came in. He saw my cakes and looked at my parents with a look that said, "You're letting her eat all of that?" I laughed and he glared at me. Kyle gave me every cake except this one, I said, pointing to the small slice of red velvet cake with my plastic fork. He looked at Kyle with a look of disappointment when he said that he had no more. Logan then came up to me with puppy dog eyes. Please, he begged. I shook my head and instinctively put myself between him and the food. He laughed at that and went to watch Kyle on the Xbox. Just then, Nicholas came barging through the door. I smell cake. I laughed and told him he couldn't have any. About 24 minutes later, the whole family was in the house. David and Ryan came in together, and William came in after that. About 13 minutes later, Joseph, or Joe, came in with his mate, Sophia. Then, on the 24th minute, a sweaty Jack came in with his mate, Lillian, and Nicholas's mate, Jennifer. It was times like these that I realized how big our family was. When I finished dinner, I went upstairs to get some sleep. Chapter 10. Anthony's POV. I sat down by a tree. I had just been chasing the servant girl, but she had probably been chasing something. Running from you, Walker told me again. I shook my head. She wouldn't run from me. Well, my wolf spoke in a duh voice. Our mate ran from you. Ouch, really low blow, Walker. It needed to be said. I imagined him shrugging, but his voice was strained. We would eventually go crazy with the need to have our mate soon. I grumbled and looked at the fallen leaves. I suddenly felt anger sweep over me, only to be replaced by excitement. I had been having really weird feelings lately that would randomly come up. My mate was just feeling really angry at someone, but then got really excited about something. Walker barked to me. I huffed and, Our mate, and who is she angry at? I growled at the last part. Patience, boy. I don't know, and you just ruined any chance of me figuring it out, Walker growled. I hissed in a frustrated way. So close, but so far. Just as long as you're not mad at me, I growled, and suddenly spotted a tuft of red fur. I decided to practice the hunting skills the servant taught me on whatever was left of the fur. I followed the paw prints, not thinking to check if the animal was a werewolf, since I could tell it wasn't one from the kingdom. The prints were semi-large, so I hoped it was a big animal. I got the bow out and crouched as I realized that the prints were getting fresher. I slightly picked up the pace and ran into a bramble bush. As I untangled myself, Walker laughed at me the entire time. Oh, shut up! He only laughed harder in response, so I growled at him. Once I was completely untangled, I followed the prints again, but to my disappointment, they were stale by now. I put the bow back and stood up normally. I then went to follow the animal again, but before I could, my father's voice boomed in my head. Anthony, where are you? It's past dinner and you aren't back. Come back now. I glanced up at the sky and realized that he was correct. I let him know that I was coming, and I shifted and ran in the secret way to my room. I changed and went down for dinner. ... After dinner, I went straight to my bed, realizing how tired I was. Tomorrow, I vowed, I will find that animal. ... I got up bright and early in the morning, writing a note saying where I was going. I grabbed an extra pair of clothes and the bow from yesterday, making sure I had the arrows, and jogged out. When I got to the forest, I instantly found the prints, fresher than last night, but still stale. I followed them, finally identifying them as fox prints, and got ready as the prints got fresher. My father would be so proud of me if I came home with the animal. I soon saw the fox, standing strong and proud. I drew an arrow back, but made just enough noise to alert another animal. The squirrel shot up a tree, and the fox looked around expectantly. I drew the arrow back, quieted this time, but right before I shot it, I heard a "No!" and a girl flew in front of the fox. I didn't recognize her in the midst of anger that it cost me my catch. Get away from here, I roared. I shifted, not knowing why anger had overcome me, and flew at the girl. Chapter 11. Anna's Point of View. I woke up from my sleep with the urge to go into the forest. I yawned, thanking the goddess that today was my day off, and walked downstairs. My mother looked at me as I walked out in my hunter's outfit, and I motioned to the window. She nodded as I slipped out the door. I didn't know what made me want to walk, but I just went with it. I decided to visit Fiaga. I hadn't seen her in a few days, so I wanted to drop by and say hello. I followed the track I used to go to her den. I got to the twisted oak Fiaga called home. It was a lovely place, a small clearing in the forest with a stream bordering a portion of it. I looked around, but I didn't see my animal friend. I sniffed the air, but all I caught was a stale scent. I followed it, and it gradually became fresher. I soon spotted Fiaga, sitting in a smaller clearing with her back to me. I let out a quiet call, knowing only she would understand it, and scared a squirrel in the process. Fiaga looked around expectantly for me, but I heard the locking sound of an arrow snapping into place. Without thinking, I raced out in front of Fiaga, feeling a huge bout of anger. No! She shifted and flew at me, and Holly immediately recognized him. Our mate! I screamed as he clawed my back, taking more damage because I couldn't shift. If I did, all this hiding would be for nothing. Suddenly, the blows stopped coming. I looked up to see Fiaga holding the prince down, not hurting him, but putting enough pressure to hold him down. I could practically see his anger go away as he recognized me. You, he breathed. I motioned for Fiaga to get off him, and he immediately ran to me. Great goddess, Holly, go with me here. She responded immediately. Okay. I pretended to look scared and backed away from him. Anthony held a look of hurt and confusion before nodding in understanding. He thought that because he attacked me, I was scared of him. Then he turned to Fiaga. He drew out his sword and pointed it towards her. She cowered up against a nearby tree as he advanced upon her, sword near her neck. I screamed as he lifted it up. And he turned to me. "What?" I swallowed. "Don't hurt her." He gave me a curious look. "And why not?" he asked, as if he knew I had no answer. This sent me over the top for some reason. "Why not? Why not? I'll tell you why not. She is a good animal and she saved my life and your place as a prince. How would your parents react if they knew that you killed a servant girl for saving a fox?" He didn't look any different, except for the obvious fact that he was hiding his emotions from showing in his eyes. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "If you touch a hair on her pelt, you will have to kill me." Anthony looked slightly confused, as if he didn't understand something. By the zoned-out look on his face, I could tell he was talking to his wolf. Then he turned to me. "I'm surprised you have the nerve to threaten me. I won't hurt her, but she had better make sure she doesn't hold me down again, or there will be punishment." Chapter 12. Anna's POV. I felt Fiaga nudge me with her muzzle. "Thank you," she said to me, "but you didn't have to go against your mate for me." I was shocked. I could never live knowing you got punished for being an animal. You have been there for me multiple times, so I need to repay the favor. Fiaga nodded. "Okay, but don't get yourself killed because of me." I laughed. "I don't want to get killed," I said sarcastically. The fox rolled her eyes and stalked off. I smiled and sat down with my back leaning up against a tree. ... Anthony's POV. I growled to myself. Why couldn't I be mad at the servant? I tried my best to be mad, but the anger wouldn't come. I was also confused about why I felt random emotions of anger. I was worried one moment, then angry the next. Walker kept telling me it was our mate, but I shouldn't be able to feel her emotions unless she was just outside the territory. My goddess, Anthony, use your brain if you have one. Quoting your thought, I shouldn't be able to feel her emotions unless she was just outside the territory. I frowned. Anthony, I have a brain. If she is outside territory, she could smell us before we smell her. So use your goddess-given brain for once and stop calling me stupid. This wasn't a normal argument between us two. Usually, we just snapped at each other and ignored each other for the rest of the day. But this one was bigger than usual. We were already starting to go crazy with need. Chapter 13. Anthony's point of view. I yawned as the sun glared down into my room. I threw a pillow at the button for the blinds, and they fell down quickly. I sighed. The only thing I really hate in the morning, besides not being able to wake up next to my mate, is the sun smiling down on me. Gah! I hate mornings, I mumbled as the blinds fell off the window and the sun lit up the room again. I threw off my covers and took a quick shower, changing into normal clothes and walking out of my room for breakfast. I sat down at my spot to see that it was a nice-sized amount of food. I picked up my fork and started gobbling it down, thankful that my parents were asleep. If they weren't, let's just say that I would have a lecture about manners and princely behavior. I finished quickly and walked out the castle doors. Most people would still be asleep, but the oh-so-happy sun decided to wake me up. I growled. I really hated Hector now. He would put the blinds up on my only day of rest and let the sun wake me up. I really needed to get back at him. I walked through the forest, making sure that I kept clear of the fox tracks, and stopped by the place where the stream fanned out to the Delta Wolf. My great-grandfather's great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather, I think, had been exploring new places to expand the city. Later that day, he had come home with his mate. It still confused me. The Delta was an amazing place for concentration. I came here every day. The grass here was a beautiful green color and the water was crystal clear, which got darker as it got closer to the sea. I suddenly heard a scream, and the first thing I thought was how I needed to get to the person. I nearly shifted, but I decided that it would be hard to help if I had no clothes to shift back into, so I used my werewolf speed to run there quickly. I slowed to a stop when I saw the servant girl playing in the water with some older guys. They were picking her up out of the water and throwing her back in. I couldn't see her expression, but the guys were laughing really hard. I don't know why, but I felt a surge of jealousy and anger at the guys. They were laughing at the girl and throwing her. That is not how men treated women. My wolf nearly came out when she resurfaced, laughing with a look of joy on her face. I sighed with relief that the men weren't hurting her, but my jealousy didn't go down one bit. "Hey, Anna, you ready to go halfway to the farthest island?" "Anna?" Walker purred. I was confused. What's so special about her? "I don't know," he answered. "I just think that name is perfect, but—" He stopped talking when we heard a scream, quickly followed by a splash. I snapped my head back to the water with a growl. I looked around the guys, but Anna wasn't there. I was about to let Walker out, but she resurfaced. "I will kill you!" She screamed and swam towards one guy, the same one who asked her if she wanted to be thrown again, and tackled him, pushing him below the water for a second. Then she zoomed away as the guy came back up, jumping to the spot where she was. I heard her laugh a few yards from him. "You might be stronger, but you will never be faster than—" She was cut off mid-sentence as another guy came up behind her and threw her the other direction. She landed in another guy's arms and they picked her up by her waist. I growled again. I felt extremely jealous now, and I had no idea why. The next thing I knew, I was walking up to them. They all stopped what they were doing and bowed their heads. I turned to the girl. "Do you know these guys?" She nodded. "These are my brothers, Kyle, Logan, Nicholas, Ryan, David, William, Joe, and Jack." They all nodded when she said their name, and I felt my jealousy go down a lot. I nodded to them and turned my attention back to the girl. "I would just like to inform you that the guard on the kitchen is gone. You will have to go back to Sebastian's room again." She nodded, and I left. Anna's point of view. When I got home after swimming, I dried off and started to send my mind to Fern, not knowing whether her mate had marked her yet. I sighed with relief at her extremely bored answer, "Yes, I don't need any more tea, and I'm not too cold, or anything like that. I'm perfectly fine." I chuckled at the greeting. Sounds like someone is bored out of their mind. I could practically feel her perk up, which made me laugh harder. "Anna, where have you been? You haven't mind-linked me since Dylan told you to tell me to not leave." "Sorry," I answered. "I wanted to leave you two in peace, although I was quite worried that he had marked you so that I would have to go through him to talk to you. Even then, he would still listen in." I heard Fern sigh. "Yeah, but I think if he marked me, I might have more freedom because I'd be able to leave without having 20 guards on my tail." I shuddered. "Fern, if it's that bad with an officer, imagine with the future king." Fern groaned. "I don't want to. I feel so sorry for you." "I know." "Hey," she suddenly sounded excited. "Want to sneak out of the castle? Just walk around? Maybe talk to Fiaga?" "As long as I don't get in trouble, I'm in." A few minutes later, we were both outside, racing each other and having fun. We didn't even realize where we were until a blast of our kingdom's scent hit us. I glanced at Fern, also mud-coated wolf, with shock. Rogues! Chapter 14. Anthony's POV. When I got back to the castle after delivering the message, I was immediately met with my parents, a group of officials, and a few guards. I guess a patrol found something. My mother stopped. Anthony, thank goddess you're here. Rogues were scented along the southwest border. There are a lot of them, and it looks as if they have been somewhat trained. I nodded, processing the info in my head as my father spoke. Could you go with the patrol along with Nestor? Gilbert needs to stay with Lillian to calm her down. Having twins must be rough. I nodded. Especially with another on the way. Anyway, I'll go. Where is Nestor? Right here, a voice sounded behind me. I turned around to see my brother standing in front of me. How was the date? Nestor snorted. Another for the crown. Some of these females are not the brightest. They think that because they are my partner, they get the crown. I looked at him. A simple not well would do, you know, I pointed out. Boys. I turned to my father, who was ahead of us. He motioned for us to hurry up and turned away to lead the patrol forward. I ran with Nestor to catch up, shifting into my reddish-gray wolf while he shifted into his dark gray wolf. We both had dark amber eyes, his a shade darker than mine, and we were about the same size. He just a bit bigger. Seeing Nestor's almost black wolf reminded me of a conversation I had with my father a long time ago. Flashback. I watched as my father put the book down, his eyes tired. That's the last chapter for that book. Good night, son. He kissed my forehead. But I had a burning question, and I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep without asking. Dad, before you go, I have a question. My father had sat back down on the bed with a smile. Ask away. I yawned, curling my tongue like a wolf. Why is it where almost every book has the person's wolf either black or white? I haven't seen any here. My father sighed. Anthony, these stories aren't the same as our life. In those stories, the black or white wolf is rare and really special. In the real world, black and white wolves aren't alive anymore. A long time ago, there was the Great Pack. One big pack that held every wolf. Back then, your wolf was either black or white. One day, a pack of rogues attacked and killed the king and queen just after their son was born. The son was born differently, a middle gray, rustic-colored wolf with a darker tail. The reason for this discoloring, he was told by the survivors of the attack, was the moon goddess reminding them of the attack. He had been born mixed, both his parents' colors mixing into one, and the rustic part was from the blood that had been spilt. After a while, after the mixed wolf got spread across the kingdom, the remaining black and white wolves left to become a new kingdom. They got killed off by the same rogue group. Now, the rest of the wolves separated according to how they worked, and the 7 kingdoms were formed. Almost as soon as he had finished the story, I had fallen asleep. End of flashback. I followed my father as the patrol moved forward to the place where the guards smelled the rogues. When I got there, I was surprised to find that they had left back across the border. I mind-linked my father. Maybe they left? Don't think too quickly, my father answered. Rogues are sly creatures. I wouldn't be surprised if they're waiting to ambush us. He mind-linked the entire patrol to watch out as they separated to see where the rogues might have gone. Suddenly, I heard a wolf shriek. Obviously, the entire patrol heard it too, because they all snapped their heads in the direction the sound was, ears perked. The patrol started running towards the sound, and I suddenly smelled the sweetest smell I had ever smelled. It smelled like vanilla and honey, the best mixture ever. I raced forward even faster due to Walker freaking out over the smell. I finally had enough. What's so special about the smell? What's so special? I'll tell you what's so special. Mate! 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 The second he howled the words out, I ran even faster. In the back of my mind, I could hear my father calling to me, telling me to stop. Finally, I found a little clearing, and I looked down into it. I saw 2 brown wolves with different colored streaks. The one that had my full attention had almost white streaks on his brown fur. Mate. Almost immediately after I identified the wolf, another scent hit me. Rogues. Chapter 15. Honest Point of View. I moved into a defensive position the second I saw the rogues. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Fern doing the same. I quickly mind-linked her. This was a terrible idea. I know... She stopped mid-sentence as the rogues turned their attention to the side. Fern and I followed their eyes, looking through the trees. An amazing scent hit me just as I saw a wolf staring at me. It smelled like chocolate with a small hint of honey. It was amazing. I was starting to lean into the scent when I realized what it meant. Holly was howling, "Mate! Mate!" I cut through her howls. "Holly, this is bad!" Holly cut off her howling, but I could tell she was rejoicing. The rogues forgot about Fern and me as they raced towards the prince and his patrol. Fern looked at me in alarm and jerked her head to the prince's reddish-gray wolf. I nodded and bowed my head. This was going to be tough. Anthony's point of view. All the rogues shifted their attention to me as the rest of the patrol caught up to me. My father mind-linked me as he came to stand next to me. "Anthony, what was that?" I couldn't help it. Walker was going crazy, and when I got here, I realized why. My mate! My father's face turned from disapproval to happiness instantly. "Congratulations, son." "Now," he said, addressing everyone, "everyone needs to go after all wolves except Anthony's mate. Is she the brown one with white streaks?" I nodded, and he continued, "Anthony, you need to keep your mate from running, and when she shifts back, give her this towel." He threw a towel at me, and I grabbed it midair. "Are we ready?" As soon as everyone nodded, he looked at the rogues again. 3, 2, 1. "Go," I thought, as I charged down towards my mate. My other half, my life. Honest point of view. My eyes widened as Anthony raced down the hill, the king right by his side. I started to make a move to run, but before I could, I saw Fern getting tackled by the king. "Fern!" "I'm all right, Anna. I can mind link him, showing I'm the officer's mate, but run before the prince catches you." I started to run again, but the prince pawed up to me and bowled me over. I instantly clouded my mind. I knew that the royal family could force itself into any wolf's mind, so I had to cloud it. Somehow, though, he managed to get through. Shift. I forced myself to mask my voice. Never. I opened my eyes to see Anthony's face. I'm seriously thinking he has anger issues because he looked, let's just say, if looks could kill. "Now, sweetheart, we can do this the easy way or the hard way." I'd much rather do it the easy way, but that would probably mean me shifting, which I don't want to do. But the hard way, is there a medium way? Can I have a description of every option I have? I do have no way, right? I mean, by now I was playing for time. Well, the easy way is when you shift without resistance, and we live happily. The hard way is where I take you to the castle, I wait until you shift, and we still live happily. I snorted. Any other options? Nope. Now, easy or hard? I could tell she was in deep thought by the look on her face. She looked behind her, and her face filled with fear. She started shaking under me, so I looked where she was looking. I scented the air. Maybe all the rogues weren't chased away. "Father, are you or any of the patrol free?" The reply came instantly. "Yes, but we're a ways away." "Why?" I growled through the link. There's still a rogue out there. Go get it, son. We'll circle around your mate so we can stop her if she tries to escape. As soon as he finished, I slowly got off my precious mate to go get the savage creature. I searched for a while, but there was no rogue. I walked back to my mate to find that the patrol was searching for her. I shifted back and put the shorts that I brought, and I walked out. Where is she? The only thing you had to do was keep her from escaping. One simple task, I roared at them. The guards backed up and bowed in submission as my father and Nestor walked up to me. Anthony, when we were walking back, we caught a whiff of her scent as if she ran, but when she saw us, she went the other direction. We followed her scent here, where it appears she shifted back, and her scent just disappears. My father was the one who spoke. No, I whimpered as the words settled. I ran away and shifted, stopping where the land just dropped off to the sea. No! I howled my sorrow to the moon goddess, hearing it echo across the quiet forest. I fell asleep with nightmares. Anthony's point of view. I raced down the cliff as my mate made a move to run. I was worried I'd have to give chase when she stopped as if mind-linking someone and she started running again, but it was too late. I bowled her over, making sure she had no chance of escaping, and sighed with pleasure when I felt her fur. I tried to get into her mind, but it was shrouded with clouds. I tried harder, and this time I got through. Shift, I ordered. She had a focused look. Never, she spat. She opened her eyes to see my wolf face, and I could tell she saw how angry I was. I growled back at her. Now, sweetheart, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. She could tell she was in deep thought by the look on her face. She looked behind her, and her face filled with fear. She started shaking under me, so I looked where she was looking. I scented the air. Maybe all the rogues weren't chased away. Father, are you or any of the patrol free? The reply came instantly. Yes, but we're a ways away. Why? I growled through the link. There's still a rogue out there. Go get it, son. We'll circle around your mate so we can stop her if she tries to escape. As soon as he finished, I slowly got off my precious mate to go get the savage creature. I searched for a while, but there was no rogue. I walked back to my mate to find that the patrol was searching for her. I shifted back and put the shorts that I brought, and I walked out. Where is she? The only thing you had to do was keep her from escaping. One simple task, I roared at them. The guards backed up and bowed in submission as my father and Nestor walked up to me. Anthony, when we were walking back, we caught a whiff of her scent as if she ran, but when she saw us, she went the other direction. We followed her scent here, where it appears she shifted back, and her scent just disappears. My father was the one who spoke. No, I whimpered as the words settled. I ran away and shifted, stopping where the land just dropped off to the sea. No! I howled my sorrow to the moon goddess, hearing it echo across the quiet forest. Chapter 16. Anna's point of view. I opened my eyes, looking down at Fiaga's red fur. Her breathing was even, so I assumed she was still asleep. I got up from my sleeping spot and slowly made my way to the exit of the den. Right before I left, I glanced back at my friend. Just then, one of her icy blue eyes shot open. Nice try, Anna, but you are not getting out of this. I groaned. She had to have woken up right then. Sit your butt right back down and explain. I sighed. There was no way out of it. Anthony knows my scent. Fiaga's point of view. Oh yeah. I stared at Anna in shock. They saw each other in their wolf forms? So what happened? I know he's seen your wolf, so did he recognize you? Well, Anna was starting to look nervous. I was covered in mud, so I looked brown. Anyway, Fern and I were out alone at the border when some rogues came out. A patrol, including the king, Anthony, and Nestor, came out, but I was still in my wolf form. Anthony kept me down while the rest of the patrol took care of the rogues. He got into my mind and told me to shift. When I said no, he told me that he would carry me to the castle and make me shift there. I played for time and I thought of a plan. I acted like a rogue was behind me and he went off to find it. I climbed a tree after I shifted and jumped here. I listened in shock. She defied her mate in her wolf form? She must have had more control than I thought she would have when the day came. How did Holly react to it? I asked, stretching my legs. Anna shook her head. Did you hear that howl last night? I nodded. I remember hearing something just before I fell asleep. That was Anthony. Holly has sunken into a sort of depression, that we made him that anguished. I blinked, knowing that if I were human, I would be crying. I knew how much werewolves relied on their wolves. If Holly became really depressed, that would affect Anna. Either that, or Holly would become dormant, only accessible by people she trusted. Anna, I murmured, letting my tail rest on her shoulders. I think it's time you went to him. Explained. I know you and Holly don't want to hear this, but it needs to be said. Anthony loves you. He has since he first felt the mate sparks. His wolf instinctively purrs when you enter the room he's in. He wants to be with you. He just can't put two and two together. Anna, every second you are away from him is killing him. He feels like he is dying. He needs his mate to survive. His wolf has probably lost all hope. I know Holly feels this. She just wants to spare your feelings. Well, that has gotten you nowhere. Here's the ugly truth. You are killing your mate. You are hurting him physically and emotionally. You are causing him more pain than a rejection would. You are his life, and being away from you feels like a knife at the throat. By now, Anna was crying. I felt bad for making her cry, but it needed to be said. I moved my tail to wipe the tears off her face. She looked up at me, her eyes full of sorrow. How could I do this? Chapter 17. Anthony's POV. I had slept on that cliff, knowing that in the back of my mind I wanted to roll off while sleeping. Of course, the wish was not granted. I had come back to the castle to see if the patrol, including Nestor, Gilbert, and Seb, was going out again. I had heard them earlier. They looked for my mate very loudly, and I was glad they still went out to look. Hector had offered to go with them, but my mother had protested, saying she needed one of her sons to stay. He had changed a lot. It turned out that Seb's influence had changed his attitude and made him a strong, caring, selfless man. When my father told him that he might be king, he put his kingdom's needs in front of his wants, saying Seb would be the better choice after me. The entire journey home, I had been trying to communicate with Walker. I knew what it meant if he wasn't speaking. He was becoming depressed, sad, and angry at how he couldn't find out why our mate was running. Thankfully, he hadn't stopped me from shifting. That would mean he had lost all hope of finding her. It would be torture. I let a tear fall down my cheek. It was the first time I had cried since that terrible night 4 torturous years ago. She was running from me. I had to face it. She didn't want to be with me. Or perhaps something was making her want to stay away? More tears slipped down my face, and I let out a silent sob. I loved her. I wanted her by my side all the time. I needed her. I wanted her so badly it was killing me. She was my everything. When I first felt her skin, I tried to hug her. I wanted to love her. I wanted to hold her in my arms and never let her go. I've tried to call her something other than her since I felt her. I've wanted to tell her how much I loved her. My cheeks were wet with tears by now, knowing I might never get to do any of that. I let my back fall, and my head hit my pillow. After that, I was out like a light. Fern's POV. Dylan looked at me again, and I could tell he was close to letting his wolf take over. Sweetheart, how many times do I have to tell you you may not leave the castle without my permission? Even then, you have to have guards with you. I growled. I'm no prisoner. You can't keep me here forever, and I'm sick and tired of you telling me that I can't do as I please. You know what? I liked it more when I was a servant, and not with you. Dylan's eyes turned pitch black, blacker than the night. Hello, wolf. What did you say? Jacob, Dylan's wolf, growled at me. I all but flinched. I said, I liked it better before I found out you were my mate. I watched as Jacob's eyes filled with ideas? Well, let me change that thought, he said, making me wonder what he meant. Just then, I saw his teeth lengthen into fangs, and he looked at my neck. Oh, goddess, he's going to mark me. Jacob walked closer, trapping me between him and the wall. He already knew my sweet spot, where his mark would go, so he immediately went for it. The second he got close, I turned my head and slapped him. Jacob, I growled, letting Katrina, my wolf, tick over. Stop this now, or I will leave you and not look back. He only growled at me and tried again. This time, I slapped him and I kicked him. That's it, I cried, throwing up my hands. I'm leaving. I got away from him and grabbed my bag, throwing everything that was mine in it. Dylan seemed to realize what was going on because he took control back and stared at me. You're leaving? He choked out. At my nod, he let out a sob. Please, Fern, please don't leave me. I turned to him, hoping no pity was seeping into my eyes, and growled, Then treat me like an equal. He nodded. I will. Just please don't go. I'm sorry for trying to mark you before you wanted to. I smiled. Apology accepted. That was one thing I didn't like about the mating bond. You could never be mad at your mate. Chapter 18. Anna's POV. I went back to the castle soon after Fiaga was done speaking. She was right. I was killing my mate. I had decided to write a letter, putting his intelligence to the test. The letter would have to give just enough information to find out that I wasn't a rogue, and it would help him out when guessing who his mate is. I made sure to include a few times that we won't forget. So, I pulled out a piece of paper and started writing. Dear Anthony, I am so sorry for running. My Redford friend showed me that my fear got the better of me, and my desire to keep my family's rank stable made me desperate. They are too low ranked to survive a rejection. Getting that out of the way, I can't help but laugh when I remember the day you got jealous of my brothers. If I ever feel bad, my wolf reminds me of that day. Also, I think my anger got to you when you tried to hurt a friend of mine. The same one who showed me the light about how much we needed each other. Thank you for steering clear of her now. Also, you need to get better aim. I saw the way you hunted. I've been with you the entire time. You've been next to me a lot recently. Just giving you a little help. Love, your mate, Anthony. I stared down at the paper and started tweaking it so that everything flowed into each other. I still mentioned everything, I just made it less jerky. I went out to clean. Just because I had come back from a very depressing moment didn't mean I could escape my duties. Anyway, it gave me the perfect chance to deliver my letter. I knew that the entire royal family was in the meeting hall discussing the missing mate, so I could slip in, deliver the message, and slip out to Seb's room. I quietly opened the door and I ran to Anthony's bed. I didn't even turn the lights on as I gently placed the letter where he would see it on his black covers. I then ran out of the room and closed the door, making it seem like I had never been in there. I raced to Seb's room and started cleaning, finishing in record time. I then slipped out of that part of the castle and got back to my room quickly. Anna! I nearly banged my head on the metal bars holding up the top bunk at the sound of Fern's voice. Anna, what happened when you showed who you were? I could hear her yawn through the link. The king had a guard escort me back, and then I almost got forcibly marked by Dylan. I'm seriously to the point where I'm moving back down with you. Anyway, what I really want to know is, where are you? Did you get caught? I'm in my own room, and Anthony has no idea. Wow, Anna, you must be really powerful if you can stop Werewolf from jumping into his arms. I don't know. Fern went quiet, and I could tell she was having a conversation with someone else because she gave me enough space to hear the voices. Fern, who are you talking to? Found Dylan. Do I have to tell you every single thing I do now? And there's the Fern I know, always ready with her short temper. Yes? Oh, goddess, no. If Dylan was that bad, he was the lowest ranking officer and extremely possessive of his mate. I had to deal with Anthony. Let the moon save me. I got back from the meeting with a frown. My mate couldn't have just disappeared. She couldn't have. As I went to my bed, I noticed an envelope on my bed addressed to my mate Anthony? Chapter 19. Anthony's POV. I nearly screamed. My mate wrote to me. The same mate that had run from me was now giving me hints of where and who she is. I scanned the letter again. She wrote of a few times that we must have had together, but she must live in the castle. I really wish Walker could help me out on this, but he was too concentrated on making sure he would never miss our mate again, even if one of us were human when we were together. At least he had started speaking again. I scanned through the letter a third time and started thinking. I got jealous of her brothers. She saw how bad of a shot I was, and I attacked her friend. What? Anna's POV. I walked out into the forest. I hadn't seen Fiaga in days due to my not wanting to go out into the forest. You can't blame me. I mean, Holly practically made a barrier around the castle that I couldn't go through. Not really, but she forced me away from the doors. I ran to Fiaga's den to see her looking hopefully in my direction. Anna, thank the god that you came. Apparently, while werewolves worship the moon goddess, foxes worship the sun god. So you are waiting for me? Fiaga snorted. For days! I have been debating with myself about this for days, but I decided I would ask. Ask what? By now, I was more than confused. Anna, Fiaga gulped, I would like to see if your magic can make me a fox shifter? Fiaga's POV. I watched as Anna's mouth made an O shape. You want to see if I can add a human part to you? I shook my head. I want you to raise mine from the dead. My family was a huge family of fox shifters, but hunters killed them all off. When I was the only one left, they wouldn't kill a pretty face like me, so they told me they would only kill my fox. I had to shift to keep them from beating me, but when they were about to inject the poison, I shifted back, making the poison kill my human form. Anna looked shocked. What was your human's name? I closed my brown eyes. They had turned the light brown of Caitlin, my human form. My mother had the habit of naming us different names. I remember my original eye color, that beautiful ice blue color. I remember when I wished that I could have that color for my human eyes. But now I wouldn't really care if they only appeared sometimes in fox form, the form I had been stuck in for so long. The clearing of a throat brought me back to the present as I realized that Anna was still waiting for an answer. Caitlin. Her name was Caitlin. Anna sighed. I'm just going to warn you now, I might have studied this magic for years, but it's extremely difficult to perform, and the book said that you would have to shift to the new form immediately, unless you want to lose it. Only thing is, it will feel like your first shift. It will actually hurt more than your first shift. Are you still sure you want to do this? I nodded, and Anna sighed again. Tomorrow. I'll bring a towel and some clothes so you can change into something when you shift. I did a fuck smile. This was going to be good, and maybe now I can find my mate. Chapter 20. Anna's Point of View. I stayed up much later than usual, reading books on the raise half spells. They were extremely difficult, but I should have enough power to overcome them, I hoped. I then tried to make the sparks appear. That would mean that I could perform the spell. To my amazement, they came out easily. No nightmares plagued my sleep, so I wasn't too tired, and I was ready to start the day. I trotted to Seb's room, still thinking about the spell. Well, I sure hope I don't kill her. Anonymous Point of View. I didn't feel nearly as weighed down as I did the first time I wore the armor. Its weight had grown on me, making it feel almost normal. The king, queen, and all 5 princes stood in front of me and my patrol. You must search the entire castle, the city if you must, to find this scent. I breathed in deeply. Sadly, since the future king's mate wasn't with him, it would be hard to determine her scent from all the others, but I was determined to find my future queen and Luna. Go now, the king spoke, authority deep in his tone. I nodded to my patrol as we raced toward the rest of the castle. We split up, with one person searching the castle and me searching the forest. Fiaga's Point of View. I paced the clearing outside my den. Anna was taking forever. Literally, the second I thought that, she appeared with a determined face and some books. Right, are you ready to do this? I nodded and muttered, as I'll ever be. Anna closed her eyes and I could see the power shooting through her veins. Wait, I actually could see the power? Oh my, it's getting closer to her hands. Oh shoot, I might not actually be ready for this. I nearly told her to stop when a beam of light came out of her hands that could probably be heard throughout the forest. The light hit my fur and I instantly started concentrating on my human form. The brown eyes with black hair, how long my nails were when Caitlin was killed, and so on. I soon felt an excruciating pain shoot through my body. I heard a small crack and a few more, and my body became a twisted mess of half-human, half-fox bones. Finally, I felt a pain that nearly made me pass out, and the last crack was heard. I looked down at myself as Anna threw a towel to me. I looked like my 7-year-old self imagined I would look at 16. My face had matured, my eyes were a bit different, my voice... Anna, it worked! She smiled, but of course, someone just had to come by and ruin the moment. I thought that the king and queen had announced to every person that if they had magical abilities, they were to go to the royals. I'm sure they will want to hear your excuse, servant. Anna and I glanced at each other as we looked at the guard in front of us. Oh, shoot! Anthony's Point of View. I sat restlessly in the throne room. They had to find her, they just had to. A knock was heard at the door, and I almost leapt out of my chair, but my father placed his hand on mine and said, "Enter." The second the doors opened, Walker went crazy. She's near, she's near. She's either in this room or just outside, but she's near. I looked at the patrol with the servant girl in front of them. Every single one of them was female. The goddess must love to play tricks on me. Anna's Point of View. The guard went to the king and whispered in his ear what had happened. Caitlin was just outside. She couldn't be questioned due to being a fox. I bowed my head. I'd probably be thrown in some sort of jail. Not telling the royals that you were a mage was a huge felony. Why didn't you tell us, servant? I used all my power to stop my voice from shaking. I didn't want to be singled out for being different, and I didn't want to be considered dangerous by you. The king sighed. You should have just told us anyway. Because you didn't, I have no choice but to— No! Anthony cut his father off. They mind-linked for a bit, but Anthony shook his head and stood up, walking towards me. Anna? He whispered. Holly howled when he said my name. She was just content to be standing this close to him. Anthony walked even closer, and it was starting to bother me. Or that was until he grabbed my hand, letting the sparks fly, and pulled me in to kiss him. I forgot everything. Anthony's point of view. I got lost with my mate in my arms. Walker was urging me onwards, but I reminded myself of where we were when Anna pulled away. My father cleared his throat. If you are done, I'll get on with her punishment. I pushed her behind me, protectiveness filling me up. If you harm any part of her, you are dead. My father smiled. So, she is your mate? I pulled Anna closer, chuckling silently at her whine of protest. Yes. I didn't even realize that my father told everyone to leave. I picked my mate up, bridal style, and carried her to our room. I smiled as she instinctively rested her head on my shoulder, sighing contentedly. I would talk to her later. First, I wanted to have her in my arms for the rest of the day and never let her go. Epilogue. Anna's point of view. Anthony, let me go see Caitlin, or I will move back with my brothers and their mates. Anthony growled. I won't let you out of this room. Just link her. I rolled my eyes. Anthony could be so stubborn. He hadn't marked me yet, so he thought that males would steal me away. As if. Everyone knew I was his mate. They knew they would be torn apart piece by piece if they even looked at me in a way that suggested something. Honestly, I think Anthony was scared that the girls would steal me too. I can't, you dummy. She's resisting my link. Not even you could get in. She's been away too long to trust links just yet. Anthony looked at me as I smacked his head. You look cute when you're mad. Ah, that's it. I'm leaving. How? I growled. I'll find a way out. He thought that just because he had guards right outside the door, escape was impossible. Huh. I smiled evilly. The few times he'd let me out, I'd been in the library when Fern or Caitlin, who I still called Fiaga a lot, even though she was in human form, I had been reading up on a teleportation spell. And I finally got it figured out. Anthony walked into the bathroom as my smile turned into a grin. Perfect. He finally left me alone so I could escape without him seeing me. I can already see the look on his face when he realized I was gone. I hope he doesn't hurt anyone. I put my hands together and instantly sparks formed, creating a shell-like magical orb around myself. Next thing I knew, I was walking next to Caitlin in the hall. She jumped back in surprise. Hannah, don't do that. I chuckled. Come on, it's not like Anthony was going to let me out alone, was it? Annigan rolled her eyes, and we started chatting. Suddenly, I heard a booming voice. Where is she? Caitlin jumped out of her skin, and she banged right into Seb, who happened to be walking the other way. My eyes went wide. I blinked, pinched myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming, slapped myself, even summoned a bucket of cold water and poured it on me. Nothing worked. It was all real. Caitlin and Seb. First they bump into each other, then suddenly they're kissing? What on earth? I unconsciously used a spell to dry off as the two kept kissing. I cleared my throat, hearing Anthony's booming voice from across the castle. What on earth is this? Seb moved between Caitlin and me. Mine, he growled. Words can't express how shocked I am. I barely realized Caitlin's voice was in my head. I suggest you teleport back to your room and act like you were there the entire time. I'm just as shocked as you, but I'll tell you everything after this later. Also, tell my mate, I guess, to keep quiet and pretend you were never here. You need some fun. I chuckled. Anthony would be so confused and agitated if he came back to the room to see me in it. I mind-linked to Seb. Shh, you never saw me. Oh, just to help out, her name's Caitlin. After that, I teleported back, anticipating Anthony's return.